Dear listeners, thank you for your incredible support in helping our channel grow. We're aiming for 1,000 subscribers, so please support us by subscribing and helping us reach this milestone. Now let's start the story. Present, Ben, Jens, and the rest. Meeting after the news report of Samantha's airs. We call a team meeting with everyone, other than the security who are on duty, in the conference room after Samantha's report is broadcast. I take the podium, with Jens beside me, and announce, I want to take the time to thank each of you for working with us. I have never known a better team of people than the ones we have right now. Jens begins to clap her hands and yells, I would like everyone to give yourselves a big round of applause because you all deserve it. Once the applause dies down, I continue. With that being said, I need to caution everyone. Once our report is translated to Farsi and rebroadcast, we're going to have every jihadist in the world out to get us. Yes, this really is going to be a war that we will win. It would be remiss of me to assume that all of you are going to stay, so I'm going to offer any of you the chance to leave today, with the promise of your job back when this is over. If you would like to leave, please stand up and leave now. The only person that stands up is Mabel, who's in the first row of seats. She turns around, looks at everyone, and says, I don't know about anyone else, but I plan on staying and kicking some terror, but if I can. There's a spontaneous round of applause for her. Then Gretchen stands up and declares, I don't know about anyone else, but I'm all in until the end. Another round of applause ensues. Then Tom stands up and says, both Ben and Jennifer are performing a vital function for America because their message will bring most, if not all, of the terror cells in this country out of hiding. And we won't be alone on this endeavor because we will have assistance from the Marshal's Service and the FBI. I am working on the coordination with them now. Jens smiles at the room and says, thanks all of you for standing beside us. It means more than you can ever imagine. Now, does anyone have any questions for us? Gretchen raises her hand and asks, in Samantha's report, you said no one would be hurt and that you're on some sort of mission from God. Could you be more specific? Jen replies, I was sure Gretchen was going to ask this question, so I was ready and answer. Gretchen, without going into too many details, I am certain about what I said. No one is going to be hurt. Ben interrupts, other than some terrorists who we will send back to their hell. I continue, yes, Ben and I have been given a specific mission. Tom surprises me when he stands up and adds his 2 cents. I believe in what Jennifer has said. They do have a specific mission. I will certainly need to query Tom about his support later because it really came out of nowhere. Ben continues, we will of course talk to the security staff that's on duty individually and not to downplay this whole situation because it will be a war and there will be battles. We did discover that Samantha's phone had been hacked, and that's how the terrorists knew we were back and were able to attack the front gate this morning. Gretchen stands up and says, I would like to examine everyone's phone to make sure that others haven't been hacked. When you get them back, be careful who you let borrow your phone. I suggest, Gretchen, if it's not too much trouble, let's plan a weekly check of each phone. Gretchen agrees. I like that idea even better. Ben brings up his phone issue again. Gretchen, have you found a phone yet for me, Ira and Mira? Gretchen answers, not yet, Ben. I've been too busy. Linus offers, Gretchen, I could help take some of the load off you. I suggest, why don't you two meet after this and hammer out the details? Liz asks, Jens, are we still having PT in the morning? I reply, of course, Liz. We're not running or hiding from the terrors. Gretchen adds, you will be accompanied by the drones. Ben gives further information. And the wolf patrol will be on duty. Gretchen, please make sure you do not get the drones too close to the wolves as they don't like it. Tom's phone rings. He answers it and says, Ira and Mira, there's a courier with a diplomatic package from the Kazakh embassy at the front gate. They walk over, whisper to Tom, and leave. Present, Mira and Ira, the courier. We temporarily hand off security for the Blaines to Tom because our courier has finally arrived. We stop by our rooms, pick up our PSG-1S, and traverse to the front gate. We verify the courier is in an official embassy vehicle. However, I still approach it with caution while Ira provides cover. I notice the van and terror vehicle, which are pushed to the side and still aflame from the earlier attack. The big Caterpillar vehicle is against the front gate as further reinforcement against intrusion. Tom has done exemplary work reinforcing the security. I clamber over the gate, approach the vehicle, and almost display mirth since the courier has his hands elevated in surrender. It is good to know that we still instill fear in our countrymen. I approach his door. He lowers his window and stutters, I need a signature for this package, and hands me a clipboard and pen. I query, do you also need identification? He stutters again, no. Miss, I know who you are. I hand him the clipboard. He hands me the package and raises the side window. He rapidly departs our location as I walk back to Ira and grin. My sister, he was terrified of us. Ira smiles and replies, I tell my sister, That is valuable information because I was concerned with our extreme absence from our home country, they might have forgotten us. Mira says, should we need a sanctuary, I feel with what is in the diplomatic pouch, we could traverse to Kazakhstan. We traverse back to the tunnels and notate the meeting has terminated. We find Tom and query, Tom, where are the Blaines? He said, they are in the control room with Gretchen, Linus and Maria. What is in that diplomatic pouch? We suggest, follow us and oculate for yourself. We arrive in the control room where we notice that they are all in the cage of Faraday looking at Samantha's phone. We approach the aforementioned cage and I request, Mr. and Mrs. Blaine, might we have a few moments of your time? Ben replies, sure, no problem. They exit the cage of Faraday as we transverse to a table. I open the diplomatic pouch, reach inside and hand Mr. Blaine his new passport. Tom remarks, hot damn, that's a diplomatic passport. Ben looks at it, opens it, and displays mirth. When did I become Valentin Sedankina? I hand Ms. Blaine her new passport. She opens it and also displays mirth. So I'm Dasha Sedankina? Ben thinks for a moment and asks, wait, isn't Sedankina your last name? I reply, you are correct. By making you part of our family, the fear our name instills in our home country will extend to you, thus providing valuable protection. Ms. Blaine asks, but diplomatic passports, why did you do this? Mr. Blaine takes her hand and says, yes, it's all part of the plan. I am amazed and query, Mr. Blaine, you had previous knowledge of the diplomatic passports? He replies, not specifically, but I knew we needed a way to travel into some places without attracting attention, and now I understand how we will accomplish this. I retrieve a folder for each of them, transfer it to the Blaine's hands and say, this is your background information, please memorize it. Ms. Blaine opens hers and remarks, it looks like I better brush up on my Russian. Mr. Blaine replies in perfect Russian, I won't have a problem with that. I respond, your Russian is excellent. Ms. Blaine asks, Ben, will you be my teacher? I offer, Ms. Blaine, I will gladly work with you on your Russian. She frowns and says, I was hoping Ben would be my teacher, and if I did an excellent job, then I might get a reward. I grin and reply, don't you think Mr. Blaine has lost enough weight? Mr. Blaine displays mirth and Ms. Blaine asks, Ben, what did she say? Mr. Blaine whispers in her ear. Ms. Blaine crimsons, then give us an evil look and wonders, Ben, do you think our bedroom is finished yet? She takes his hand, and they leave the control room. Tom also displays mirth and opines, those two are worse than rabbits. Now for those of us that don't speak Russian, what did you say? Mira and I giggle and I reply, Tom, Mr. Blaine has lost weight because of the frequency of their copulations, so I asked if he hadn't lost enough weight. Tom laughs, then his phone rings. He looks at it and says, I need to take this in private. Tom leaves the control room. Mira looks at me and queries, I do believe that was Inga. I affirm, yes, I am certain it was. Present, Samantha, at the castle. John shows up to the castle, takes a look around, and says, man, this place is great. I ask John, why are you here? He replies, I thought you might want to do a report on the car bomb attack this morning. I smile at him and say, that totally slipped my mind. Where would you like to do it? He suggests, how about here? I like the idea, so we do the report. Present, Tom, phone call from Inga. My phone rings. I look at the ID and see it's Inga, so I excuse myself from the control room, walk out into the hallway, and answer the phone. Inga begins to cry, Tom, it's not fair. I'm not sure what she's talking about, so I reply, Inga, what's not fair? Inga continues with the crying, Tom, because Ben and Jennifer came back, and because of the terror attack on Samantha, Stacy felt that it was a danger to keep the restaurant open, so they are closing it. I think for a moment and then suggest, Inga, I'm sorry to hear that. But with what's going on around here, I could sure use your help. Inga calms some and says, yeah, I heard about the car bomb attack this morning. Samantha did a report on that right after her interview with Ben and Jennifer. I interrupt. Inga, please tell me she didn't show any video of the front gate? Inga puts me at ease when she answers, no, she didn't show any video of the front gate. Her report was done in a room I had never seen before, one which looked really nice. Tom, I will only come back if things are different than last time. Tom says, Inga, of course it will be different. However, I still want to take this slow. Inga says, slow is fine with me as long, and there's some hope for us. I pause and bite the bullet. Yes, Inga, there will be hope for us, even though I think I'm too old for you. Inga asks, Tom, could you come and pick me up? I reply, I have a couple things to do here, then we'll be right there. I head back into the control room and announce, I'm headed to Leadville. Does anyone need to go to town? Gretchen suggests, Tom, please check with Mabel. She might have some food that needs to be picked up. Linus says, Tom, if you don't mind, I would like to come with you because I need to pick up some things for Jennifer. I foolishly ask, can't she pick up her own things? Linus laughs and replies, not Ben's Jennifer, our baby Jennifer. I laugh and say, There's too many Jennifers around here. Linus teases, well, if our next one is a boy, we might have to name it Tom. I taunt. Yeah, right. We all know it will be Linus Jr. Come on, let's go talk to Mabel and grab some coffee to go. Linus says, now that sounds like a plan. I also want to grab some rifles. I nod my head and agree. Yeah, no one leaves the compound without a rifle anymore. We head to the kitchen for coffee and to talk with Mabel. Present, Stacy, at Stacy's offices. Bill comes back, walks into the office, turns on the sound masking and says, I changed the order of things and told Inga and the chef about closing the restaurant first. Then I did what you wanted for the first task. I ask, how did they take the news on the restaurant? Bill replies, surprisingly the chef took it better than Inga. My guess is Inga will be going back to the Tsifs. I smile at Bill and counter, oh, I think we will lose Inga, but not to them. Ben and his bitch hired Tom to handle security for them, so I think she will go back to work for them. I think for a moment, then suggest, Bill, would there be some sort of way to slip a bug into her things before she left? Bill frowns and replies, Miss Summers, you really need to get over Ben Blaine. I interrupt. Bill, I was almost over him until I found out his bitch is a witch. I'm sure she's cast some sort of spell over him. That's the only explanation for him choosing her over me. Did you read the report on the bitch yet? Bill replies, no, I didn't have the time. Do you want to hear about the first task? I shake my head no and say, just as long as they are found today, I don't need to know anything. I want plausible deniability. Bill assures, they should be found soon. Now I need to find Samantha and look at the plans she had for a moat. I reply, I think she's still at the castle. Bill leaves and hasn't realized that I tracked his vehicle to the location where he placed the bodies. I take out another burner mobile phone, make another phone call, and inform the person who answers about the location of the bodies. Present, Samantha, at the castle. I finish with my news story about the car bomb attack, then Bill walks in and asks, Miss Stevens, I heard you made some drawings about a possible moat. Do you still have them? I reply, yes, I do, but they are at my room in the office building. We're finished here, so let's head back. As we leave the castle, Bill suggests, Miss Stevens, why don't you activate the security system? I blink my eyes and ask, security system? I didn't know I had one. Bill walks over to the main entranceway, presses on a piece of the wall which opens and reveals a security panel. Bill instructs, you need to set this every time you leave the castle or at night. Here's how you do it. He gives me the code. I watch him enter it. The alarm system begins to beep, and we quickly leave the castle. Vic remarks, I wondered why there wasn't a security system. Bill says, all of Ms. Summers' buildings have a security system in them. By the way, if you want to change the code, let me know. Vic asks, are all the codes the same? Bill says, yes, they are until an employee leaves. When that happens, all the codes are changed. As we walk up the hill toward the offices, Vic asks, but what do you think about WTSHDF? I ask, what the heck is WTSHDF? Bill laughs and says, it means when the shit is going to hit the fan. Vic, I think it's going to start sometime today. Vic continues, so what are your plans? Bill replies, we're hiring more security, increasing the camera coverage, and hoping to hunker down and ride this one out. Vic continues, it really wasn't very wise of Ben to taunt the scumsuckers. I remember something and swear, son of a bitch. The guys look at me. I blush and say, sorry about that. Stacy and I were going to go furniture shopping tomorrow, but I forgot I need to meet with Liz about her wedding. Vic asks, those two are getting married in the middle of everything else that's going on? I smile at him and say, of course, because they want to be married before Liz has her baby. Vic asks, who else is going to be there? I hate to tell him, because I know he will complain, but I say, Liz, Bernie, the wedding planner, Jennifer, Ben, and their 2 bodyguards. Vic practically explodes. Miss Stevens, I wouldn't. I interrupt. Vic, there's no way I'm missing this or the ceremony in 2 more days. Bill interjects. Aren't the Blaine's bodyguards the same ones who kicked our butts? I reply, yes, they are, and I had a most uncomfortable search done by one of them. Vic chuckles. Yeah, Bill, they searched Miss Stevens everywhere. I blush and remind him, at least I didn't try to sneak a knife into the tunnels. Bill laughs. Don't tell me the old fart caught you? Vic says, yeah, I forgot about it, but Tom found it, and then locked me in a holding cage in the garage. But getting back to the subject of the meeting, Miss Stevens, I highly recommend you do not attend this meeting. I dismissively wave my hand and say, Vic, I'm going to the meeting, and we're not talking about this again. We get to the offices where I say, Bill, let me grab my drawings, and I will meet you in Stacy's office. I grab my drawings and head to her office. Flashback, Masha, finished with moving day. To be truthful, I was more than a little embarrassed by the furniture that Louise brought into the house. Most of it was more than worn. It looked like it had been dropped off the back of the truck. I knew it wasn't because I helped Michael and Louise unload the furniture. I knew how much of Ben's money I had left and made a decision. While Louise was inside rearranging her room, I pulled Michael to the side and asked, Michael, would you be able to help me tomorrow? Michael replied, "Sure, what do you need?" I explained, "Other than Linda's furniture, Louise's furniture is a disaster. I was hoping you could take us furniture shopping tomorrow." Michael agreed. "Yeah, I never knew how bad Louise had it until I saw the place she lived. It was terrible. But if we're replacing her furniture, what's the point of bringing the rest here? And won't she complain if you buy new furniture?" I said, "I'm not going to buy the furniture. Her future boyfriend is going to buy it." Michael asked, "Her future boyfriend? Who are you talking about?" I told Michael all about how Ben and my husband worked together and how Ben had left some money for me. Michael scratched his head and suggested, "I'm not sure she's going to fall for this." I laughed and said, "Michael, it is my problem to convince her. Did you see how terrible her mattress was?" I had seen it on the back of the truck. Michael replied, "Not only did it look terrible, it smelled even worse. I can't believe she could sleep on that." I suggested, "It's too bad that it somehow couldn't be destroyed." Michael smiled and suggested, "Masha, why don't you help me unload it now while she's in the house?" As Michael and I began to unload it, he dropped it hard on the ground with part of it against the back of the truck. There was a satisfying tearing noise which ripped the top of the mattress, and it was destroyed. Louise came out of the house, and Michael apologized. "Louise, I'm sorry, but I think Masha and I accidentally destroyed your mattress." Louise looked at the mattress and resignedly said, "Oh well, things always get destroyed when you move. This furniture was really nice at one time, but I've had to move so often that it was destroyed in the process." Michael asked, "Why did you move so much?" I could hear the pain in Louise's voice when she replied, "To get away from Linda's scumsucker father. He was, how should I say it, not a very good man." Michael was going to continue with the questions until I waved, and he understood. I lied a little. "Louise, I forgot to tell you. I told Jack about you moving in, and he told Ben, and Ben demanded that we use some of his money to furnish the bedroom into which you are moving." Louise gave me a funny look and asked, "Why would Ben care about furnishing the extra bedroom?" I continued with the lie. "I told Ben about you and Linda, and he determined we needed to take care of you. You know, he's just that sort of man." Louise replied, "I have never met a man like that. Most of the men I meet are only looking for a one-night stand, and when they find out about Linda, they run away as fast as they can. Well, who am I to look a gift horse in the mouth? I guess there's no reason to bring any more of my furniture here. All we need to do now is bring over my clothes." Michael asked, "What about the furniture that's already here?" Louise scrunched up her face like she always did when she thought, and said, "Let's take it all to the donation container at the store." I was glad my plan worked and suggested, "Even your mattress?" Louise smiled and said, "Especially the mattress. It has been with me since before Linda's father." Michael unfortunately asked, "Is that blood on the mattress?" Louise was brave when she answered, "It's not just blood, it's my blood." I could tell by the location of the blood that it wasn't from a beating that the dumb shit gave her. It was positioned where her private parts would have been when the dumb shit had assaulted her. Now her earlier comment about the Krav Maga lessons made more sense. I would need to find a way to teach her even as she attended school. Michael said, "Well, let's haul the furniture to the donation box at the store. Then we'll pick up your clothes. I will be back tomorrow to help you shop for new furniture." I was so very thankful to get the smelly, terrible furniture out of the house. It wasn't long until Michael and Louise were back with just her clothes. Thank God her clothes were better than the furniture and none of them smelled. However, I did offer, "We should wash everything tonight so we can put it away clean tomorrow." Louise agreed, "That's a great idea." Michael promised to arrive tomorrow at 9 and left. When he was gone, Louise grilled me. "Annie, Masha, are you sure what you told me about Ben was the truth?" I confessed, "Louise, I did lie to you a little. However, I do know Ben, and I am sure he would want me to use some of the money he left for the furniture." Louise was sad and replied, "Masha, I could tell you didn't like the furniture. Why didn't you just tell me the truth?" I replied, "I was concerned you would say no." Now it's my turn for a question. "Louise, why didn't you tell me that Linda's father assaulted you when you were still a virgin?" Louise looked shocked and replied, You could tell from the location of the blood stain on the mattress. Masha, it was all a terrible mistake. I met him in a bar, and he put something in my drink, which made me unconscious. He took me back to my apartment, and he and his friends did terrible things to me all night long. I asked, "If you were unconscious, how do you know they were terrible?" Louise replied, "He and his friends took videos of it, plus both my holes were sore the next morning. He forced me to watch the videos many times with his friends. They would all laugh at me and suggest that I let them do those things to me again, and sometimes force me to do them. Thank God his friends finally went away, but then I became his personal property for almost a year. Once he found out I was pregnant with Linda, he left. I moved and hoped he would never find me again, and I thought I was done with him. But every few months he would find me and try to abuse me. When I rejected him, he began beating me. I asked, did he ever hurt Linda? Louise cried. He threatened to kill her if I didn't let him assaulted me again. It was such a terrible time in my life, I just want to forget it. I knew that it was now my mission to find this dumb shit and remove him from the gene pool. I looked at Louise and said, I guess there will be one more night in the bed with me. She yawned and said, yeah, I'm tired from moving all day. How about a little wine and then some sleep? We finished off half a bottle of wine. Louise prepared Linda and herself for bed first. Then I went into the bathroom. I came out and Louise said, Masha, I never told anyone about the torture I went through. Please don't think any less of me. I hugged her and said, Louise, we do many things to protect our children that we normally wouldn't do. So don't worry about it. Also, we are going to continue your Krav Maga lessons while you're in school. Louise yawned a thank you and fell fast asleep while I continued to plan on how to permanently take care of Linda's father. Flashback, Ben, the Striker mission continued. My trip to the Striker wasn't as easy this time since the scumsuckers had snuck close enough to take some pot shots at me. I zigzagged like hell because the last thing I wanted was one of the scumsuckers getting lucky and punching a hole in my MOPP gear. I finally made it to the Striker and the agent in charge said, we didn't bring any MOPP gear. First I ran up to the Marines and commanded, keep the scumsuckers away from the Striker. I have to get everyone else back to the hospital because they don't have MOPP gear. I looked at the ever-looming cloud that drifted toward the disabled Striker, ran up front to the drivers and asked, is this Striker still airtight? They shook their heads, so I commanded, everyone, including the drivers, follow me back to the hospital and make sure to run in a zigzag pattern. We bailed out of the Striker and were doing a hell of a job, even with the random gunfire. Then one of the scumsuckers got lucky and a round glanced off the ceramic plate on my back, destroying the integrity of my MOPP gear. Our luck didn't hold as the cloud enveloped us. We arrived at the hospital where George was to meet us and I ordered, get the hell away from us. We've been contaminated. The head CIA agent yelled, get on the horn and get a medical team here ASAP. I began to feel a runny nose and counter-commanded, George, it was a nerve agent that we were exposed to. Get the corporal with the UOP pack down here. Have him go through it and find the atropine auto-injectors. We will need one for each person. George took off as I began to get out of my MOPP gear. I looked at everyone else and commanded, you need to get out of your contaminated clothing. The main agent asked, how do you know it was nerve gas? I replied, is your nose beginning to run? He said, yeah, it is. I replied, bingo, it was nerve gas, but don't worry because the rest of the symptoms are even worse. The corporal showed up with the UOP pack and I ordered, check the right lower side and look for the atropine auto-injectors. He pulled out 5 of them and I swore, don't tell me that's all we have. The corporal apologized, sorry, Sergeant, there are no more. He started to walk towards me and I ordered, Corporal, we've been contaminated, toss the atropine auto-injectors to me. He threw them. I caught them and passed them out, but we were still too short counting me. I thought for a moment and commanded, check the right-hand side where all the bottles are. Find the one marked atropine, and then check for syringes and find me 2 smaller ones. Also find the bottle of vodka and bring it. The corporal found the atropine, syringes, and vodka, so I ordered, take 2 steps out of the building, set them on the ground, then go back inside and close the door. He obeyed. Then I went over to the supplies and asked, which one of you didn't get the atropine? The second CIA agent raised his hand. I took the bottle of vodka, opened it, took a short drink, spilled some in my hand, and wiped down the agent's shoulder. Then I asked, let me see one of the auto-injectors. The main agent handed me his, and I swore, shit, the concentration isn't the same. I began to do the math in my head, and the second agent asked, why are you waiting? I glared at him and replied, the concentration is different, so I need to change the dosage based on the different concentration. Now shut up as I do the math. I figured out the correct dose, took it out of the bottle, and injected the second agent. I then swabbed my shoulder with the vodka, took another belt of it, and injected myself, then took another good snort of vodka, just for good measure. The head of the Mercs asked, how about you share that bottle? I glared at him and declared, this is only for medicinal purposes. He complained, well, you took a couple pretty good pulls off of it. I grinned at him, took another pull of the bottle, and said, that's right, and they were medicinal pulls. I handed it to the head agent and suggested, you and your helper might want to take a snort or two because it will help to lessen the impact of what's coming. They each took a couple of snorts. I set the bottle back by the atropine, waited for medical help, and got out of the sun. Flashback, Jack, getting ready to head to the hospital. We were still waiting in the Black Hawk when a shitload of medical people began to jump into the chopper with us. I asked, what the hell is going on? One of the doctors replied, we've got some men who were exposed to nerve gas. They began to get into their MOPP gear, so I looked at Todd and said, it looks like it's time for us to gear up. Todd did well getting into his gear, even with the motion of the chopper, so I praised him, good job with the MOPP gear. Todd replied, thank you. They had me do this so many times in basic that it sort of comes naturally. I do hope we won't have to do much running. I asked, they made you run in your MOPP gear? Todd replied, yes, Sergeant, they said it was part of basic training. I got so lightheaded a couple of times I practically passed out. I continued to question, what did the DIs say? Todd replied, they laughed about it and said it was normal. I silently swore. Those DIs did this to Todd to torture him. That made me even more motivated to turn Todd into the best Marine I could. I replied, Todd, it's not normal to do much, if any, running in the MOPP gear. I think the DIs were giving you a bad time. He showed a spark of intelligence when he replied, now it makes sense why I was the only one they had do it. As the Blackhawks sat down on the roof of the hospital, the doctors and nurses bolted from the chopper. The butter bar met them, and then they continued downstairs. I walked up to the butter bar, saluted, and said, Sergeant Jack Reynolds reporting for duty. George said, welcome back, Jack. I thought you were going to be out for a month. I'm glad you're here because Sergeant Blaine was exposed to the nerve gas. I swore, son of a bitch. How did that happen? George replied, he was bringing the CIA agents and their mercenaries back from the disabled striker and was shot in the back. His body armor protected him from physical injury, but he was contaminated. He's downstairs with the rest of the CIA team. I hope like hell the medical staff can do something for them. I asked, permission, sir, to go see them? George said, not now, Sergeant. With Ben gone, you're our new first sergeant. Please make sure all the men are still in their MOPP gear. I asked, is there still a danger from the gas? An old fart walked up, without MOPP gear on, and said, Jack Reynolds, you're a sight for sore eyes. I grinned at him and said, Michael, I figured you were blown to hell by now. Why no MOPP gear? He smiled and said, the risk is over. The gas dissipated in the winds. It was a shame what happened to Ben. I began to get out of my MOPP gear and yelled in my command voice, stow your MOPP gear. I asked, you think he will be okay? Michael shook his head and said, there's no telling because we don't know which gas it was. I had my MOPP gear stowed, looked over, and saw Todd had his MOPP gear stowed. I began down the stairs, and on each level issued the order to stow the MOPP gear. I reached the bottom floor, opened the door, and saw the contaminants naked as jaybirds. The medical staff was in the process of scrubbing them down and administering more narcotics. I noticed the nurses were paying particular attention to Ben's genitals and figured that he was in for more of what happened to him back at the hospital. Todd asked, Sergeant, what are they doing? I explained the whole decontamination process to Todd as well as I could. I yelled to Ben, I brought your re-enlistment papers with me. Ben swore, Jack, not the hell right now. Can't you see what's happening? I taunted him. Yeah, I see it. It's a good thing the doctors and nurses are here to stay. Ben swore, Jack, you son of a bitch. I waved then Todd and I left. Flashback, Jennifer, at home. There was another knock on my door. I said, come on in, it's open. Daddy walked into my room and said, Jennifer, Colonel Clark is here and would like to talk with us. I asked, and are we meeting in your office? Daddy smiled and said, that's right. So come on down when you're ready. I jumped off the bed and announced, I'm ready right now. We walked down the stairs into Daddy's office where Colonel Clark said, thanks for seeing me. I wish I was bringing better news. Daddy practically bellowed, what the hell is wrong now? Colonel Clark informed us, much as we thought, Marcia's parents have stopped any lawsuits we can bring against them and have actually filed a suit against Jennifer. Daddy swore, what the hell for? Colonel Clark said, assault. They claimed Jennifer attacked Marcia in Jennifer's room without cause. I complained, no frickin' cause. They threatened me. Colonel Clark attempted to calm me. Don't worry about it since I have a list of girls that will testify to that exact thing. Once they take us to court, I plan on filing charges against them and Marcia. Daddy smiled and said, thanks for all your work. Would you like a drink? Colonel Clark replied, a small one would be good. I excused myself. Well, if you two are getting drunk, I'm going back to my room. I remembered a spell I saw in the book that I wanted to look at again. Daddy complained, Jennifer, we're not getting drunk. I went back to my room, locked the door, waved my hands, and the book appeared. I began to search for spells that would make Marcia and her parents rue the day they messed with me. Grandmother appeared and suggested, Jennifer, try this spell. I looked at it, liked it, and said, okay, here goes nothing. I said the words and asked Grandmother, how will I know it worked? Grandmother replied, oh, I'm sure it did, and when you see her in court you will know for sure. Grandmother left, and I felt a little better knowing that Marcia would have to pay for the problems she was causing. I recalled my grandmother's warning from earlier. I caution to you, guard your heart against the other temptations that will come. What exactly did she mean by that? I continued to think about her warning and Ben and slowly slipped off to sleep. Flashback, Alexei, at the laboratory. We were both in the car, had begun to leave the laboratory, and were stopped when a large number of police cars showed up. Father swore, son of a bitch. Now there's no hope for your mother or most of the rest of the laboratory staff. I innocently asked, why is that, Father? Father didn't answer because a policeman came up to his side of the car. Father rolled down the window, and the policeman demanded, "Do you work here?" Father told the truth. "I used to work here, but recently resigned." The policeman continued his questions. "How recently?" Father looked down and said, "Up until last week. That was when things went crazy. We were lucky to escape with our lives." The policeman ordered, "We need you to get out of your car and accompany us back into the laboratory." Father fought the request. "Sir, I would prefer not to. Conditions are terrible in there, and I need to protect my son." The policeman would not listen to Father's complaint. He ordered, "I don't really care what it's like in there. You are taking us into the building." Father looked at me and ordered, "Alexei, stay in the car and lock the doors. Don't open them for anyone other than me." Father reluctantly left with the policeman. I locked the doors and was surprised when I heard gunfire coming from the laboratory. I jumped into the back seat and hid under a blanket we had there. Flashback, Ira and Mira, continuing. We successfully adulterated all the vodka, returned it to the campsite, and made sure to place it where it could easily be oculated. We placed the remaining cannabis on a log adjacent to the fire. Then we went back to the cave and checked Myra's interior accoutrements, which were now dry. She reapplied her interior accoutrements and said, "Thank God my accoutrements are finally dry." I replied, "Yes, we now need to terminate the fire and wait for our enemies to discover our trap." We terminated the fire and didn't have to wait long until we heard some men approach the campsite. Flashback, Todd, on the mission. After the extended negotiations, Maria and Gail agreed on a price for the furniture. I was in slight awe because they were getting the furniture for less than half the original price. This was going to save me a buttload of money. Roberto informed them, "I have some cousins coming in a truck to take the furniture to your house." Maria asked, "Just how was that arranged and how much will it cost?" Roberto said, "Todd didn't like the look of any of the drivers that were here, and my cousins will charge you a fair price." Maria was satisfied, thank God, and began to give the sellers shit about wrapping the furniture correctly. With them busy, Roberto said, "Todd, my cousins are also bringing the gun cabinet you wanted so we can set it up today. Now just so you know, buying the furniture is just the beginning of this adventure." I found out what he meant when we got the new furniture to the house. Present, Jens, Ben, and the others. Bad news. Unfortunately, our room wasn't finished yet. Rats. I wanted to try out the mirrors on the ceiling, so we went back to the meeting room. The meeting was over, but the main phone rings. Gretchen answers it and announces, "Jennifer, it's Samantha for you." I figure it must be something about the report she did, so I walk over to the phone and ask, "What's going on, Samantha?" Samantha shocks me when she instead says, "Jennifer, you're not going to believe it, but the terrors have the bodies of your mother and Megan." I take a deep breath and slump into a nearby chair. Ben amazingly realizes I'm in trouble, comes over and asks, "Honey, what's wrong?" I look at Ben and answer, "The frickin' terrors have mothers and Megan's bodies." Samantha continues, "Not only that, but they have done terrible things to them." I swallow hard and ask, "What sort of things?" Samantha replies, "Sexual things that you really don't want to see." I ask, "How did you learn this information?" Samantha replies, "They released a video to all the major news outlets. I've refused to let the Truth Network show it." I think for a moment and say, "Samantha, show the video, and then grab your camera and get over here for our rebuttal." Samantha says, "Will do. It should be on sometime soon." I demand, "Turn on the TV to the Truth Network." The TV is turned on, and we see a frackin' scumsucker come on and announce in very broken English, "These are the bodies of Jennifer Blaine's mother and former best friend. Watch what we do to these infidels." Thank God the Truth Network blanks out most of the graphic parts, but you can still tell they are having sex with the frackin' dead bodies. They are sick beyond belief. The scumsucker continues, "We look forward to when we do the same to the bodies of both the infidel Blaines." Ben scoffs, "That day will never come." Meanwhile, I continue to think of an appropriate response which will infuriate the scumsuckers. I stand up and announce, "Ben, I need to go to the bedroom for a minute. Samantha is coming with a camera crew, and I need to prepare for them." The first thing I do when I reach our bedroom is to cast the formication spell on the scumsucker in the report. I'm not sure if it will work because I only saw him on TV, but I figure it's worth a try. Then I find my sexiest bikini and head into the bathroom and change. From the wolf whistles of the workmen when I come out of the bathroom, I can tell I've made my point. I walk down the hallway, into the meeting room, and Ben's eyes practically bug out of his head. He comes up and demands, "Jens, what the hell are you doing?" I smile at my husband and say, "I'm fighting fire with fire. This bikini should be enough to give those frackin' scumsuckers fits." Ben licks his lips and hopefully asks, "Are the workmen finished yet?" I reply, "Not yet, my love, so you need to be patient." Ben says, "Perhaps I should go and help them?" I laugh as Ben leaves the meeting room. Tom, Linus, and Inga arrive, and Tom says, "Why are you wearing a bikini?" Inga asks, Jennifer, is there a beach party planned? I grin at her and reply, nope, this is my anti-scumsucker combat uniform. Tom laughs and affirms, well, that should drive them crazy. And I don't blame you after what they did to you, Mother and Megan. Inga grins and suggests, Jennifer, if you could wait a couple minutes, I would love to join you. Jennifer grins at me and asks, what about you, Tom? You up for some combat? I grin right back and suggest, Jennifer, I have a better idea. Why don't we see if we can come up with some tear-off burkas? Maria walks into the room, hears Tom's comment, and she offers, Tom, that's a great idea. I can whip those up on my sewing machine in about 10 minutes. Jennifer comments, I didn't know you knew how to sew. Maria answers, yeah, I picked it up as a hobby while I was pregnant. Why don't you and Inga come to my room and I will get started? But only if I can be in on it too. They all leave and I laugh. This should be great. Linus counters, yeah, it's going to be like kicking a beehive. I reply, a beehive that deserves to have its butt kicked to hell and back. Present, Mira and Ira, in on the plan. We overhear the discussion from Ms. Blaine and Inga, so I oculate my sister and inquire, why aren't we participating in this action? Ira replies, sister, you are correct, but I have even a better idea. Do we still have our burkas? Mira affirms, we certainly do. What are your plans? I reply, wait until we arrive in our room. We transverse to our room, begin to acquire our costumes, but I can't refrain from giggling. We are sure to antagonize the terrors and also devise enjoyment for ourselves and our allies. Present, Samantha, the report. John and I arrive at the cabin, actually the tunnels, go through all the new security procedures, and are escorted to the garage. Once again, we are searched, but this time Mira isn't here, so the search isn't quite as embarrassing for me. John does complain because they carefully check every component of his video equipment and decide they don't like several items about which they offer. You can get these on your way out. John is going to complain, but I nip it in the bud. Thank you for being so thorough. If we need any of these items for the video, we will ask Tom to bring them in for us. We are led to the meeting room and the security guard orders, please wait here for Jennifer and the others. I'm not sure what he means about the others, but I soon find out. 3 women walk out of the side room wearing what look to be shabby, ill-fitting burkas. I recognize some eyes, so I ask, Jennifer, is that you? She giggles and says, shoot, my eyes gave it away. Yes, it's me. We have a little video for the terrors that we want you to shoot for us. Sort of a kiss my derriere response. Jennifer describes what she wants. I smile and agree with her desired result. This should be fun and send the correct message to the terrors. I nod at John. He begins the tape and I start. Good afternoon, America. This is Samantha Stevens with the Truth Network. Earlier, the terrible terrors issued a disgusting video where they revealed their true selves by violating the bodies of Ms. Donaldson and Megan. We are here to tape Jennifer Blaine's rebuttal. Some quasi-Arabic music comes on, and 3 women dressed in burqas come out on the stage, then dance around a little. I wait for the culmination when the music abruptly changes to Whip It by Devo. This sure wasn't part of the plan. 2 more women in burqas show up on the stage. Jennifer pauses in what I'm sure is shock, and Ira commands, burqas off now. Jennifer, Inga, and Maria remove their long cloaks, revealing bold, vibrant outfits that radiate confidence. The real surprise comes when Mira and Ira follow suit, stepping onto the stage in striking attire, exuding strength and defiance. They each produce whips, snapping them dramatically through the air. Mira briefly leaves and returns with a mannequin dressed as a symbol of oppression. With synchronized precision, Ira and Mira strike at it, piece by piece, tearing away its disguise. The symbolic act reaches its peak as they remove its final layers, leaving no trace of what it once represented. Jennifer steps forward and declares, I wanted you to see that beneath the surface are strong women who are unafraid to stand up for themselves. Ira adds, we will gladly test your courage if you think you're strong enough to face us. The women embrace, and Jennifer continues, what you did to my mother and Megan no longer matters, because their souls have already found peace beyond this world. Ira states, and what happens next will ensure that none of you ever forget this moment. John stops the recording. I look at the women and ask, do you think I can clean this up enough for regular television? The women laugh, and Jennifer instructs, I want 2 versions of this. One edited for the Truth Network and another unedited for the internet, which Gretchen will upload. Ira suggests, I think the online version will have the most impact. Gretchen agrees enthusiastically, yes. We need to start a channel and make more videos like this. Ira adds, Ms. Blaine, we have many ideas that will challenge our enemies. Would you like to hear them? I begin to respond when Ben arrives and informs me, Jens, the workmen are finished. I immediately understand what he means and reply, Ira, I'll be busy for a few minutes. Ira grins and interrupts. More like a few hours. I continue, we will talk about this after our interlude. Ben and I head to the bedroom to try out the new ceiling mirrors, They are everything I always wanted, but then the intercom interrupts us. Present. Ben, time to pick up the gifts. We're getting busy in our bedroom, finding the mirrors are great, and give the person on the bottom a great view. Then unfortunately the intercom comes on and Gretchen announces, Ben, there's a personal phone call for you. Jens laughs and says, I guess we will need to finish this later. I answer the phone, determine it's the guy I talked to earlier, and he says, your order has arrived. I look at Jens and say, I need to borrow your Jeep. Jens asks, where are we going? I reply, I am going to Denver, but you're staying here. Jens frowns and says, you're no fun? I slap her butt and threaten, oh yeah, then I guess we won't continue this later. Jens quickly recants, Ben, I'm sorry. Please can we continue this later? And please take Tom or Linus with you. I agree, taking one of them is a great idea. Jens interrupts, make sure you don't let my Jeep get destroyed. I tease, keep it up and I might have to borrow one of the twins' whips. Jens shocks me when she pleads, Ben, would you please? I give her a shocked look, and she begins to giggle, if you could see your face. I unfortunately get out of bed and get dressed. Then I head out of our bedroom to find Tom or Linus. As I leave, Jens reminds me, Ben, don't forget, we have lunch at the Delaware Hotel to go over the plans for Liz's wedding. I swear, damn, I hope I can be back in time. Jens orders, Ben, you have to be on time since you're the best man. Present, Ira and Mira, Mr. Blaine. Mr. Blaine exits their boudoir much sooner than expected and has an interesting look on his visage. I walk up to him and inquire, Mr. Blaine, is everything copacetic? He states, yes it is. I need to take a trip to Denver, and I'm looking for Tom or Linus. I volunteer, I would be most happy to accompany you. And do not forget, you need to be at the Delaware Hotel for lunch. Mr. Blaine shakes his head and states, thanks Ira. Jens already reminded me of that. And it's not possible for you to come since my trip to Denver concerns gifts for you, your sister and Jens. I helpfully state, Tom is currently in the kitchen and Linus is in his boudoir. I suggest that Tom would be easier to interrupt. Mr. Blaine says, I will take Tom with me then. And he then departs for the kitchen. Mira comes up and inquires, my sister, are there concerns about Mr. and Ms. Blaine? I reply, no my sister, Mr. Blaine is going to Denver to acquire some gifts for us and Ms. Blaine. Mira wonders, what sort of gift could he be providing for us? I shake my head and reply, I have no responsible estimation. Present, Ben, time to pick up the gifts. I walk into the kitchen where Tom and Inga are talking. I shake the keys to Jens' Jeep and say, I need someone to make a fast-as-hell trip to Denver with me. We need to be back by noon. Tom replies, Inga, now that you know the security arrangements, you stay here and make sure they are implemented. Ben, I will come with you after we get some rifles. And why don't we take my car instead of Jennifer's Jeep because I can drive as fast as I want. I agree. That sounds like a plan to me, especially since Jens is worried that her Jeep might be destroyed. Tom laughs. Hell, it would take a RPG to destroy my Crown Vic. Let's stop by the armory and pick up some rifles. We leave for the armory and pick up several rifles. Present, Tom, trip to Denver. I look forward to the trip to Denver for two reasons. One, I can get away from Inga since she has been hinting she wanted to have sex. And two, I could put the lights on the top of the Crown Vic and floor it all the way to Denver. Hell, I would have to if I wanted to get Ben back for his lunch appointment at the Delaware Hotel. We leave the compound. I slap the lights on top of the Crown Vic and floor it. We're flying down the road and I assumed I would impress Ben, but he seems bored. I ask, Ben, aren't you concerned about our speed? Ben replies, not really Tom, this car is slow compared to my Cobra. I whistled, damn, I bet that was fast. Ben replies, yeah, I outran everyone, even the sheriffs occasionally. But I was finally caught. I ask, is that what made you enter the Marines? Ben replies, no, I was traveling with a band, playing lead guitar for them and had sex with a girl who told me she was 18. She ended up being 15 and the judge gave me a choice, go to jail or become a Marine. I state, damn, it sounds to me like you were railroaded. Didn't you have a lawyer? Ben says, my father had died a few months earlier and I used our family lawyer. I had been raising hell after my father's death, and I think he was in cahoots with the judge to get me into the Marines to calm me down. I ask, I can sure look into this if you would like. There might be something legal that can be done. Ben shakes his head and answers, nah, that happened what seems like a lifetime ago, and other than all the fat was against me and now Jens, I don't really give a shit. The Marines were really good for me. I reply, and I would say from your record, you were really good for the Marines. Ben smiles and says, you don't know the half of it. I counter, Ben, you forget as a deputy marshal I have seen all of your military records, even the supposedly hidden missions for the three-letter branches of the government. Ben complains, damn, I thought those were gone. I offer, well, I can certainly make all of them disappear if you would like. Just understand, if I do this, once they are gone, they are really gone. Ben nods his head and affirms, yeah, if those could go away, it would be good. However, If I could get a copy first, it would be even better. I say, consider it done. Now where are we going? Ben tells me and I ask, what are we getting? Ben smiles and says, gifts for the twins and for Jens. We arrive at the shop and Ben says, Tom, I might need some help bringing these out to the car. I walk into the shop with Ben and I am amazed at how much he pays for the items. He carefully checks each one, finds one he doesn't like, and complains, this one needs the scope replaced. The owner smiles at Ben, goes into the back room, comes out with a new scope, installs it, and bore sights it. Ben's happy, so we take the 4 items out to the Crown Vic. Ben looks at his watch and says, tell Tom we need to fly back to Leadville. I love to hear that. Put the lights on the top of the Crown Vic and floor it. Present, Liz, Bernie, and the others, the wedding lunch. Well, Jens is here, Bernie is here, the wedding planner is here, Samantha is here, Ira and Mira are handling security along with Inga and some others from the tunnel's cabin, but Ben is missing. Jens says, don't worry, Liz, Ben should be here soon. I suggest, could you call him and see where he is? Jens shakes her head and replies, Ben hasn't been issued a secure mobile phone yet, so I can't call him. She pauses and says, but I think he's with Tom, so let me give Tom a call. Jens calls Tom and says, hello, honey, where are you? We're all at the Delaware Hotel waiting for you. I figure out it must be Ben, because Jens would never call Tom honey. She hangs up the phone and announces, they just arrived. Ben runs into the dining room and apologizes, sorry I'm late. Bernie nicely says, just don't be late to the wedding. Ben obviously teases when he says, wedding? What wedding? Jens nips it in the bud by saying, the wedding we are going to be in. If you miss it, then you're going to be missing many more things, and that you won't like. Ben shockingly retorts, you mean sex? I can't believe you of all people would threaten me by withholding sex. He laughs and continues, hell, we can't go a day without having sex at least. I interrupt. We don't really need to know this. Thanks for making it, Ben. Now, let's discuss the wedding. The wedding planner takes over and tells all of us what we're supposed to do. Present, Stacy, at Stacy's offices. I love it when a devious plan comes together. After giving the terrors the location of the bodies, they took over and did unthinkable things to the bodies. I just wish I could have seen the look on the bitch's face. Bill walks into the office and apologizes. Sorry, Ms. Summers, for the terrors finding the bodies first. Did you see the video of what those 6 scumsuckers did to the bodies? I carefully reply, yes, I did. I agree about what they did to the bodies. They are evil men. Bill gives me information I didn't have, but the rebuttal video the bitch did was even better. The problem is now there will be a battle between them. I ask what video. Bill comes over to my computer and finds the video on the internet. I watch it and can't believe it. That witch. Somehow I will make her pay. Bill continues, Miss Summers, we should really consider moving the business back to New York. Leadville is no longer safe. I counter, Bill, that's not going to happen. We just moved here, and I sure as hell don't want to move back to New York. Have you hired more security personnel? Bill affirms, yes, I did, and I also increased the camera coverage. I ask, what about Sam's idea for a moat? Bill says, I looked at the drawings and I sort of like the idea, but not as a traditional moat. I was thinking of a flaming moat. I query, please explain that concept to me. Bill says, well, we build the moat extra deep, and in the bottom of it we place a gas pipe with a series of holes in it, and a self-igniter all connected to the control panel in the castle. That way anyone who tries to enter the castle is instantly flambéed. I laugh and reply, that's a hell of an idea. When can you start on it? Bill replies, as soon as you and Ms. Stevens get back from furniture shopping. I inform him, Bill, those plans were canceled because Samantha has to go over the coverage for Elizabeth Morgan's wedding. Bill questions, who's handling the security? I reply, the Angels of Death and Inga with some of the security personnel from the bitch's tunnels. Bill logically asks, Ms. Summers, are you attending the wedding? I smile at Bill and say, of course, I wouldn't miss it. Bill states, then we will need to provide security for you. I need to coordinate this with Tom. I angrily reply, you mean the old fart who almost broke my nose? Bill affirms, yes, Ms. Summers. He's the new head of security for Ben. I secretly wish the old fart would get killed by the terrors. That gives me a new idea. Bill leaves to work on the moat, and I make another anonymous phone call. Flashback, Masha, Louise sleeping, Masha planning. Louise was sleeping soundly. However, sleep was not an option for me. Not after discovering Louise's assault and subsequent pregnancy. I needed to find the dumb shit and terminate his existence. I decided I would ask Louise where she met him because chances were he would still frequent the same locations. The next morning arrived much too soon because of my lack of sleep, but I slipped out of bed, took care of my morning shower duties, and headed to the kitchen. I was determined to discover the information on the scumsucker who assaulted Louise. He would never bother her or us again. Louise woke up, stumbled into the kitchen, and asked, Masha, what time is it? I replied, Michael is coming over early, so I decided to make breakfast. Louise wisely replied, Masha, that wasn't a real answer. I decided to confess. Louise, after what you told me last night, I couldn't sleep. All I kept thinking about was how the dumb shit should not get away with assaulting you. I was surprised when Louise agreed. You're right, Masha. He shouldn't get away with it, and of course there is the continued threat toward me and Linda. I decided to ask, so what would you like done about it? I was even more shocked when she said, Masha, he will bother me, no matter where I go, until he dies. I confessed, Louise, I feel the same way. However, to take care of this matter will require some information from you. Louise looked at me and replied, Masha, we met at the Dewdrop and bar where he still goes to look for women who he can screw. Louise gave me the address and then cautioned, Masha, make sure you do not to drink anything you're served because it will be sedated. I asked, are you telling me the bartender contaminated the drinks? Louise replied, yes, I think he's in on it too. That determined my course of action. 2 of them needed to die tonight. I smiled at Louise and said, I'm going out tonight. Do not wait up for me. Louise still cautioned, Masha, be very careful. I smiled at her and replied, do not worry, Louise. I have handled men like him before. He will never know what killed him. Louise said, I only wish I could be there when he dies. I replied, no, Louise, you don't. To see someone killed changes you. Do you remember how upset I was about killing the teenager who broke into our house? She answered, yeah, Masha, you are still a little messed up about it. I truthfully replied, that's right, and I might always be. You can't take the life of a teenager without having some regrets. Louise tried to justify my action, but Masha, she led a gang that injured many people. I simply replied, and I ended her life before she had a chance to change her behavior. And now I need to get dressed for my date tonight. I proceeded to the bedroom and put on the clothes that I knew would provide the appropriate response from Louise's ex. Flashback, Ben and Jack, at the hospital. It was annoying as hell what the nurses were doing, especially since I thought I had gotten rid of this problem when I left the base. It took all my control to not get an erection from their attention. I couldn't believe that Jack talked them into deploying doctors and nurses here. They finally finished with me, and the nurse said, we look forward to seeing you again later. I dressed in new BDUs and a tactical vest complete with a set of plates. Jack showed back up and said, I have your re-enlistment papers with me. I complained, I'm not sure I'm ready to sign them yet. Jack swore, why not? You're getting everything you wanted. I glared at Jack and laid into him. Bringing the nurses here is why. They're as bad as they were at the base. Jack said, Ben, it's going to be my butt if you don't sign them. I laughed and said, and it's my butt if I do sign them. You want them signed? Then you can figure out a way to keep the nurses from screwing me to death. Michael showed up and said, you guys were lucky the gas was sarin and not VX. If it had been VX, you all would be sick as hell. I asked, how did you know it was sarin? Michael answered, because you're not sick as hell. It was damn unlucky that your shots triggered the explosion. I replied, it was better than them launching that round at the hospital. What do we need to do about the striker and the vest you found? Michael said, I will be okay with the vest once I have my EOD equipment back on. The striker's a different story because when they come to haul it away, they are going to need MOPP gear. I asked, so the EOD gear wasn't contaminated? Michael replied, nope, I made sure to put it in its bag before I left, but I will need your MOPP gear to touch the bag. I said, don't worry, as far as I'm concerned, you earned it. The main agent came up and announced, the new striker has arrived and is hauling an EOD disposal trailer. They also sent a tow truck for the disabled striker. Michael asked, I hope you informed them that the striker is contaminated. He said, yes, I did, and I never heard so much bitching in my life. Michael looked at me and said, well, are you ready to head back to the striker? I asked, I guess we will need to put on our MOPP gear. The problem is mine was ruined when I got shot. Jack walked up and offered, you can use mine. I teased, shit, you probably farted in it. I think I will find someone else's gear. There was a private tagging along with Jack, so I looked at him and said, I need your MOPP gear. Jack complained, Ben, this is Todd, and he's not going to give you his MOPP gear. Just take mine. I took Jack's MOPP gear and suited up while Michael did the same. I ordered Jack, get up on the roof and make sure the scumsuckers are taken care of. Jack laughed and said, I guess you didn't hear. They brought in an M1 Abrams tank to keep things protected. Michael said, it's about time someone did something right around here. I told Jack, then get on the horn with the tank and tell them we're coming out to get the suicide vest. We walked out of the hospital and headed toward the destroyed striker. They were already winching it up on the recovery truck when Michael yelled, hey, I need my EOD suit out of the striker. They stopped. Michael hopped in the back, came out with his suit and swore, those scumsuckers took it out of the bag. I said, so you're screwed? He said, no way, there's extra suits on the EOD trailer. We walked over to the trailer. He opened up a side panel, pulled out a suit, and I asked, need some help getting it on? He said, sure. I helped him on with the suit. We walked over to the side of the suicide vest, and Michael suggested, "You might want to get in the new striker just in case I accidentally detonate the vest." I walked over to the new striker and climbed inside. The driver looked back at me and asked, "What happened to that striker?" I replied, "The mercs working for the CIA agents didn't do their jobs." The driver sadly commented, "Those stupid scumsuckers." He offered, "Why don't you come up front and watch the Yodi guy?" I clambered up front and watched as Michael moved, slow as molasses in January, the vest toward the EOD chamber. He was almost there when the M1 started to fire at some scumsuckers. I was impressed because he didn't even flinch at the interruption. He slowly set the vest inside the chamber, then walked toward the M1. He picked up a big rock and threw it at the tank. As it bounced off the side, the top hatch opened, and Michael flipped them the bird, then walked toward the new striker. We just laughed our butts off. Flashback, Jennifer, at home. I was having the best dream about Ben when a knock on my door woke me up. I rather grumpily said, "Who the heck is it now?" Daniela opened the door and said, "Sorry, Senorita Jennifer. Your father wanted you to know he is going to the hospital to pick up Senora Donaldson. He asked if you wanted to come." I thought about our last trip in the car and about the fight and made up my mind. "Please tell Daddy. I don't want to come because it might make Mother angry." Daniela smiled and said, "Yes, I understand. I do hope that she has stopped all the crazy talk about you being a witch." Flashback, Alexei, at the laboratory. Eventually the gunfire ceased. I crawled from underneath the blanket where I hid. Then I raised up to see what was going on. I was tempted to get out of the car and go into the laboratory until I saw a father running out the door being chased by some of the crazy orderlies. I moved to his side of the car, waited until he was close, unlocked the door, and father dove into the car and locked the doors. The orderlies began to rock the car and break the windows. Father started the car, put it in gear, and floored it. We actually ran over several of the orderlies while starting our escape. I asked, "Father, what happened?" "I heard gunfire." Father replied, "Alexei, it was terrible. The orderlies had a huge trap waiting for us. They attacked the police, killed many of them, and took their guns. Thank you for opening the door for me. They wanted to kill me." Father drove like a crazy man on the way home. Flashback, Ira and Mira, continuing. We perceived from the cacophony of noise at the campsite that the adulterated vodka was having an effect. We waited until our olfactory units distinguished the odor of cannabis. I ordered, "Mira, now would be an appropriate time to decimate the men at the campsite." We carefully and silently slipped out of the cave, worked our way to the campsite, and were surprised. Flashback, Todd, on the mission. Once Maria was happy with the way the furniture was wrapped, she made sure Roberto's cousins carefully loaded it into their truck. She saw the gun cabinet, was going to complain until I signed. Maria stopped being a pain in the butt. Gail giggled at my command to Maria and signed, "I'm hungry. When are we going to be home?" Maria translated and Roberto offered, "We could stop by the restaurant on the way to your house." Maria shot down the plan when she said, "We don't have time for that, besides we still have food in the refrigerator." Gail begins to pout until I sign. "Yes, we have food in the refrigerator, but how are you going to heat it up? We don't have any plates, a microwave, or even a stove." Gail claps her hands and signs, "I guess we have no choice other than to stop at the restaurant." Maria complains, "Okay, just remember it's going to take some time to arrange the furniture." After another great meal at Roberto's restaurant, we headed to the house and found Maria wasn't kidding. Once we got the furniture in each room, we must have moved each piece 5 times until Maria was happy with the arrangement. Gail was even worse. I swear that when we finished, the furniture was in the exact location where we originally started. Roberto's cousins did a great job setting up the gun rack in the panic room. They began to leave and I signed. "Wait, I didn't pay you." Maria translated, and they said, "The car you gave us was payment enough." I pulled out my tablet and wrote, "Roberto, if you're not busy tomorrow, I would like to get things for the kitchen." Roberto whispers, "Are Maria and Gail coming?" I shook my head no. He wiped his brow and said, "I'll be over in the morning." Present, Tom and Ben, the wedding lunch. I make sure the security is good at the hotel, but I don't notice Mira or Ira, so I call on the radio. "Angels of Death, are you in position?" One of them giggles, "Tom, if you don't see us, then we are certainly in position. I could easily remove that hat from your head and never bother your hair." The other one asks, "Did you acquire our presents in Denver?" It was time for me to tease them. "Hell yes, we did. You might want to make sure you keep my car covered too, because I would hate for them to be stolen." The first one begs, "Tom, please tell us what the presents are." My phone rings. I look at the number and I say, "Sorry, this phone call is important." It's the FBI. I answer the phone and they deliver some serious information. I hang up the phone and begin to formulate some ideas. The wedding planner is droning on. It's boring as hell, so I decide to have some fun. I raise my hand. She looks at me and says, "Yes, you have a question?" I grin and reply, I'm not sure why we're going through all this falderel. Isn't my job to just stand up beside Bernie? If looks could kill, the look that Jens gives me would have done it. The wedding planner states, I guess you have never been a best man before. You have many responsibilities. First, you have to help Bernie choose a tuxedo. Bernie interrupts. I've already done that. The wedding planner continues. You need to plan and attend the bachelor party. Bernie again interrupts. We're not going to have one of those. The wedding planner is starting to show some frustration, but continues. Because there is no ring bearer, you need to take charge of the rings. I grin and reply, no problem. So I really only have one job. Jens glares at me and spouts, heck no. The most important job for you is to escort me down the aisle before Liz. The wedding planner adds, plus, you need to propose a toast at the wedding dinner. I smile and say, okay, so I have 3 things to do, anything else? They look at each other, and the wedding planner admits, no, that's it. Tom walks into the room, motions to me, so I ask, I think Tom needs me for some reason. Do you have a problem with me temporarily leaving? Jens begins to complain. Tom comes over and says, Jennifer, this is really important. Jens relents. Okay, Ben, take care of this, but then come right back. I leave, walk out the door with Tom and say, thanks for getting me the hell out of there. Tom says, Ben, you're not going to like the reason I got you out of the meeting. We set up a Stingray cell phone simulator in Leadville and got lucky as hell. We snagged a call from a person here in Leadville going to a terror cell. I asked, do you know who it was and what they said? Tom shakes his head and says, we're not positive, but we think it's Stacy Summers, and she wanted the terror cell to kill me. I blink a couple of times and ask, what the hell does she have against you? Tom grins and says, I damn near broke her nose. I say, oh yeah, I remember something about that. So what's the current plan? Tom says, we're going to put her under surveillance. Her contacting this terror cell has been good for us because we know where they are and can shut them down. I take a deep breath and ask a question, the answer to which I hope to is no. Tom, should I meet with her? Tom makes me feel better when he says, not no, but hell no. If you do that, you could tip our hand. I say, well, I better get back to the wedding lunch. Tom asks, so are we giving the gifts to Jen and the girls later today? I reply, yeah, I don't think they will be stolen out of your car. Tom says, not with the security system I have on the car, plus one of the twins is watching it too. Tom gets another phone call and says, speak of the devil, it's Stacy's head of security. I leave to go back to the wedding lunch as Tom continues to talk. I answer the phone and ask, hello, Bill. What can I do for you? Bill informs me, Ms. Summers has plans to attend Elizabeth Morgan's wedding, and I thought we would talk about the security issues. I think for a moment and decide that if Stacy is there, it's a good thing, because then there won't be an attack planned. I decide to play nice, so I ask, what are your thoughts, Bill? Bill suggests, I was hoping to have 6 of our security there, including myself. I agree, with all the Marshal Service, FBI, and our security at the event, your 6 will be fine, as long as your team can follow directions. Also, don't bring Victor. Bill asks, why not? He's Samantha's bodyguard. I explain to him how we got off on the wrong foot at the restaurant, and then Bill promises, I will have a talk with him and see if we can't straighten things out. I state, until we do straighten things out, he's not on the approved guest list. Bill replies, I understand and will fix this. Present, Stacy, at Stacy's offices. I finally received the phone call I've been waiting for. It's taken forever, but my big surprise for Ben and his witch bitch is finished. I talk to the repair shop and get them to deliver it to Leadville. I can't wait to drive up to the wedding in it. Ben will be floored. It doesn't seem to have taken very long for it to arrive from Denver. I check it out, and it's perfect. Samantha comes in, takes one look at it and says, that's beautiful. I smile at her and say, yeah, they did a great job restoring it. You should have seen how bad it looked before. I begin to show her the pictures and Sam says, it's like they're 2 different things. Present, Ben and Tom, after the wedding lunch. The wedding lunch is over and Jens asks, okay, what did you buy me? I reply, you won't get it until we get home. Tom walks in and I ask, are you ready to head home? He pulls me to the side and says, just so you know, Stacy is planning on coming to the wedding. But it's a good thing. With her here, we can be certain there won't be an attack. Tom's mobile phone begins to go crazy and he yells, shit, someone is trying to get into the car. We run outside and catch Mira and Ira in the act of trying to break into Tom's car. Tom swears, you 2 should know better than to try to break into my car. I should arrest the both of you. They get sassy with Tom. You must have forgotten about our diplomatic passports. Tom looks at me and suggests, Ben, if I were you, I would withhold their gifts. I wasn't aware that 2 women could cause so much noise. Jens walks up and says, what did you do to Mira and Ira? I reply, don't blame me. It was Tom's idea. Tom defends his action. They tried to break into my car, so I suggested that Ben not give them their gifts. Jens scolds the twins, Mira and Ira. Of all people, you should know better than this. She turns to me, gives me a kiss, and says, Ben, please give them their gifts because they've been driving us crazy about it all day. Then she twisted in a sexy way and offers, I will make it worth your while if you do. Both Mira and Ira plead, please Mr. Blaine, relent and we will never do this again. I look at Tom and say, sorry Tom, you're outvoted on this. Well, let's get home and give them their gifts. Tom answers, well, if they ever try to break into my car again, I will shoot them. I ride with Tom and he comments, what a hell of a gift you got for them. I replied, in the long run it will make our lives easier. Tom comments, damn, your wife is driving like a maniac. I laugh, she's always been a fast driver, but she wants her gift as much as Mira and Ira want theirs. We make it home without Jens rolling her Jeep. They park in the garage and offer to help. We can assist you in bringing the gifts inside. I order, none of the gifts are coming out of the car until the three of you are in the tunnels. Mira asks, where should we await your arrival? I reply, I was thinking the armory would be good. They run into the tunnels as I look at Tom and ask, do you mind grabbing 2 of these? He takes 2. I take 2, and we slowly walk through the tunnels then into the armory room. Jens asks, okay, what's in the 4 cases? I put one on the table, open it up, and Jens says, what the heck sort of rifle is that? I reply, it's an Alexander Arms Ulfbert rifle in .338 Lapua. Jens picks it up and says, now that's a heavy rifle. I reply, yeah, it's about 20 pounds, but from what I understand they hardly kick at all. Mira begins to cry, Mr. Blaine, you shouldn't have. I interrupt, I sure the hell should have. Now we are all standardized on the .338 Lapua round. I can't wait to start reloading to see what these babies will do. Ira comments, Mr. Blaine, we have studied this rifle and dreamed of one day owning one. It is based on the Russian DP-28 machine gun and only has 48 individual parts and 10 moving parts. It is a rifle worthy of its name, Ulfbert, a Viking sword. I smile at the twins and Jens and say, well, now we each own one. I don't know about the 3 of you, but I can't wait to try mine out. We carry the cases out to the range, where Ira assumes the role of range officer. She commands, all weapons may be removed from their cases and placed on the tables. We follow the instructions and Ira further commands, apply your auditory protection. We put on our hearing protectors. Ira yelled, the range is hot. You may now load your weapon. We loaded the 10-round magazine into the bottom of the rifle, made sure it is secure, and Ira finally commanded, commence firing. We were firing at the 300-meter targets. My first shot was low and right, so I moved the scope to the hole in the target, adjusted the turrets until they were in the center of the bullseye, and my second shot drilled the target in the center. I finished of the other 9 rounds in the magazine, and when I was done, I had a great group. I noticed that Jens, Mira, and Ira were still firing. When they finish, I order, range is now closed. Jens scampers over and offers, I will collect the targets. I hadn't seen her this happy since our wedding, so I agree, go for it. We're going to let the barrels cool, and then field strip and clean the rifles. Jens comes back quickly with the targets and says, well, as usual, Ben won. Too bad the first shot was low and right. Ira explains, Ms. Blaine, that was his first shot, then he adjusted the scope. After that, his other 9 shots went into the same hole. Jens' target was a bit of a mess. I could tell she had forgotten how to sight in a rifle, so I offer, Jens, after we clean the rifles, why don't I sight your rifle in for you? We clean the rifles, reload the magazines, put up new targets, and I help Jens sight in her rifle. When I'm done, her group is smaller than my original group. I order, okay, time to clean the rifle again. Ira asks, Mr. Blaine, is this your break-in procedure for all rifles? I reply, that's correct. We're going to clean the barrel every 10 rounds until we reach 100 rounds. It took the rest of the afternoon to break in the rifles. I was happy to see that each group on each rifle was tightening up. Ira and I were neck and neck on which one of us fired the best groups, and Jens and Mira came in with similar groups. We brought in the last of the targets, began to head inside when we noticed Tom had been watching with binoculars. He said, that was an incredible display of shooting. Ira said dejectedly, thank you, Tom. However, we know that Mr. Blaine scored the best. I try to cheer up Ira by saying, any of those shots would have easily been kill shots. Tom motions to me to the side, so I ask, Ira, would you please take my rifle into the tunnels? Ira states, Mr. Blaine, if this concerns your security, I wish to listen to the information. That gets Mira and Jens fired up, so we all stand there when Tom announces, Ben, we think that Stacy Summers is planning some disruptions for Liz's wedding. Jens says, what in the frickin' heck is she doing coming to the wedding? Tom states, Liz and Bernie invited the whole town. I ask, do you know what she has planned? Tom says, not exactly. Flashback, Masha, the mission. I came out of the bedroom. Louise took one look at me and laughed. Masha, how many bars have you been to here in America? I replied, none. Why? Am I not dressed correctly? Louise continued, Masha, you look too good. If you go into the bar looking like this, no one will talk to you because you look like a cop. The only part of you that works right now are your high-top boots. Why don't we see what I have in my closet that might fit you? We walked into Louise's empty bedroom, and she began to pull out some clothes. She finally found a very short dress and said, "I think this one will fit you." I felt uncomfortable about the lack of length, so I stated, "Louise, I'm not sure I could wear this. It is too short, and I would feel like a hooker." Louise commanded, "Masha, put this on. Now let me find a top for you." I uncomfortably squeezed into the short dress and began to pull on it, trying to make it longer. Louise ordered, "Masha, leave the dress alone, you look great." She handed me a top and said, "Now put this on and let's see how you look." It was a stupid tube top, so I was forced to remove my bra. I put it on and felt worse than ever. Louise continued with the laughter, "Masha, you need to look more comfortable than you do right now." I complained, "Louise, I can't. It feels like everything is hanging out of the clothes." Louise suggested, "Let's have a little wine and you will feel better." I refused. "No, not tonight, because I need to keep all my wits about me. However, I would like you to help me put on some fingernail polish." Louise said, "Good. That will give you a chance to learn to enjoy your clothes." We began to put on the fingernail polish and Louise commented, "This is interesting polish. What type is it?" I smiled at her and replied, "I brought it from Russia with me. When I dip my fingernail in a drink, the polish will indicate if it's been sedated." Laos remarked, "Wow, they should make that available for everyone." I was beginning to feel more comfortable in my clothes and even started to flirt a little with Louise. She giggled and said, "Now that's my bad Annie, Masha. You're going to knock him dead tonight." I smiled at her and agreed, "That is the plan." Louise hugged me and asked, "How are you getting to the bar?" I knew I had forgotten something, but Louise offered, "Don't worry, I will drive you in the car." I countered, "No, Louise, you need to stay home and take care of Linda. This is my job, so I will call a taxi cab." Louise cautioned, "Make sure you call me with the license number of the cab." I smiled at her and said, "Of course, you don't want me to get assaulted in the cab." Louise worried me when she laughed. "Yeah, looking like you do, that could happen." She wrote down directions to the bar and said, "If the driver deviates from this route, you will know something bad could happen and call me immediately." I smiled and replied, "Or I could just shoot the driver." Louise said, "With an outfit like that, where do you hide the gun?" I reach into my right boot, pull out a pistol, then reach into my left boot and pull out a dagger. Louise said with some awe, "You're not messing around." I replied, "Of course not. This is war." I called the taxi. He arrived at the house, even opened the door for me and asked, "Where to, miss?" I replied, "The dewdrop Inn." I felt better about the driver when he tried to talk me out of it. "Miss, that's not a very nice place. Are you sure that's where you want to go?" I replied, "Yes, I'm meeting someone there." He replied, "Don't say I didn't warn you." I smiled at him and said, "Thank you very much for your concern over my destination." Flashback, Ben and Jack at the hospital. We finished with Michael and the suicide vest mission, then he came inside the new striker and swore, "Those M1 jockeys damn near got me killed. I can't believe they fired the cannon while I was moving the vest." The driver of the new striker tried to appease him. "They were just keeping the scumsuckers away from this striker, and we sure as hell don't want two disabled strikers out here." I laughed. "I guess you showed them when you belted the M1 with a rock." Michael cheered up with that comment and said, "Yeah, that got the tank commander's attention." Michael said, "Ben, it was a great time working with you. Thanks for all your help. But unless I'm wrong, the CIA agents and the mercs are coming, so it's time for you to leave. Thanks for giving me some time alone with the bomb maker, since I got more information out of him than the CIA agents did." I was surprised and asked about it. "How in the hell did you do that?" Michael replied, "It's simple. They tortured the hell out of him, so he told them anything to make them stop the torture. I sat down with him and talked to him, bomb maker to bomb maker. Hell, he told me everything. I bailed out of the new striker as the CIA agents and mercs showed up. The main agent made a new offer. How about if I double what we offered before?" I pointed to the mercs and swore, "And have to work with these scumsuckers? Not no, but hell no." He continued, "Well, if you ever reconsider, let me know. Here's my card." As I left the striker, and it began to pull away, I tossed the card in the dirt. Now with all that over, I still had to deal with the sex-crazed nurses. I made it back to the hospital where Jack met me and said, "Ben, I have it all figured out." I glared at him and demanded, "What the hell did you figure out?" Jack replied, "The nurse problem. It was easy because we assigned them their own room with a shower, and then I posted guards on the door." I paused and asked, "Wait, when did we get showers in the rooms?" Jack said, "Some corporal with a busted-up nose who also fixed the electrical system is a repairing genius. He was able to restore water to the building, made sure all the lights are working, and even fixed the elevators." I asked, "I hope you instituted unsafe water protocols." Jack replied, "Ben, I wasn't born yesterday. Of course we're boiling the hell out of any water for human consumption. I asked, what about the water for the showers? Jack answered, most people don't drink that water. I complained, but some do. So we need to issue the command not to let the water from the showers get into your mouth. Jack said, well, go on and do it. I laughed and reminded him, until I signed the re-enlistment papers, you're still the ranking sergeant, you can do it yourself. Jack asked, just when do you plan on signing the papers? I teased the shit out of him, possibly tomorrow, but only if I'm not attacked by any of the nurses tonight. I'm going up on the roof to make sure the snipers have cleaned their rifles. Then I'm cleaning my rifles and taking a nap. I was up more than half the night keeping the scumsuckers away. I began to walk away and added, by the way, you might want to recall the Marines I posted guarding the blown to screw striker. It was good having Jack here so I didn't have to do all the work. George came up to me and said, Sergeant Reynolds, Colonel Maggie is on the comm and is asking for you. I wondered what the hell she wanted, so I went to the comm room, picked up the mic, and Colonel Maggie immediately asked, Sergeant Reynolds, did you get Sergeant Blaine to sign the re-enlistment papers yet? I replied, no, sir. He's sort of pissed off right now and said he would sign them tomorrow. Colonel Maggie practically screeched, what's he upset about now? We gave him everything he asked for? I replied, sir, the nurses that you sent have started to annoy him again. I gave them their own rooms and assigned guards for the doors. Colonel Maggie demanded, let me speak with the lieutenant. I handed the mic to George and could hear as Colonel Maggie yelled, Lieutenant, I expect you to keep those nurses from annoying Sergeant Blaine. They practically killed him when he was here, and from what I understand they are starting on it again. George replied, yes, sir. I will talk with them immediately. Colonel Maggie continued, you'd better, Lieutenant. Make sure they know that any fraternization with Sergeant Blaine will be prosecuted. George glared at me and said, thank you, Sergeant Reynolds, for getting me in trouble with the colonel. I saluted and replied, no problem, sir. I was just relaying the facts to Colonel Maggie as she requested. If you would like, next time I can lie to her and let her know you commanded me to falsify my answers. With a sad shake of his head, George asked, when are you heading back to HQ? I grinned and replied, not for a long time, sir. This is our new assignment. He finally noticed Todd and asked, what's his role here? I replied, sir, the colonel has asked me to take him under my wing and, as she ordered, turn him into a real Marine. George barked, well, keep him the hell out of my way. In fact, you can stay the hell out of my way too. I smartly saluted and replied, yes, sir, I have things to do. We began to walk away and Todd whispered, wow, Sergeant, you really gave the lieutenant a bad time. I explained, Todd, Lieutenant George is green as grass, if it wasn't for Ben. Todd interrupted, Sergeant, who is Ben? I filled him in. Ben is my name for Sergeant Blaine. I started calling him that years ago, and it stuck. Then I continued, if it wasn't for Ben's good work here, we would have lost the hospital. Todd asked, why is this hospital so important? I described our position. When we first arrived here, the Taliban was using this hospital as a front, which violated the Geneva Convention. If any injured Iraqi police officers came to the hospital, they were tortured and killed. Once we started to overrun the hospital, the Taliban began to push the doctors and nurses out of the windows since they didn't want us to take advantage of a trained staff. You can see this is the tallest building in the area and makes an excellent observation platform. It also gives us a huge tactical advantage. A corporal walked up, held up my spotting scope, and said, Sergeant Reynolds, I was told this is your scope. Sergeant Blaine told me to treat it better than my girlfriend, or you'd kick my butt. I accepted the scope from him, checked it over, and said, Corporal, your girlfriend must love you because you've treated this scope perfectly. Thank you. He confessed, Sergeant, I don't know what happened to the case for it. I looked everywhere for it. I smiled and replied, don't worry about it because I can come up with a new case. I thought for a moment and asked, Corporal, what did you use it for? The corporal said, I used it to identify the suicide bombers headed toward the hospital. But with the bomb maker captured and their building destroyed, I don't need to do that anymore. I thought for a moment and asked, did the CIA agents take the bomb maker with them? He replied, no, Sergeant. He's still tied to the pillar in the interrogation room. I motioned for Todd to follow me and said, now this is going to be fun. I found Lieutenant George and advised him, sir, you forgot something. He glared at me and replied, I don't believe I have forgotten anything. I grinned and said, you forgot to tell the CIA agents to take the prisoner with them. He's still tied up in the interrogation room. Lieutenant George swore, shit, I thought Ben took care of that. I reminded him, sir, he was busy being decontaminated, so he couldn't do that. Lieutenant George tried to pass the buck. Well, Sergeant Reynolds, why didn't you do that? I continued with the grin and said, because I just found out that he's still here. You might want to get on the horn with the striker and have them come back here and pick his butt up. George scrambled for the comm room, picked up the mic, called the striker, and said, you forgot to take the prisoner with you. I didn't hear the reply, but Lieutenant George threw the mic down in disgust and said, The scumsucker said he's not their prisoner. He's our prisoner to deal with. He turned to me and said, "That means Sergeant Reynolds. He's your prisoner to deal with." I grinned and said, "No problem. I will just throw him out the window." Lieutenant George practically exploded. "Sergeant Reynolds, you will do no such thing. You will follow the Geneva Convention on this." I thought for a little while and came up with possible idea. Flashback, Jennifer at home. I was studying the book again, so I had my door locked. There was a knock on the door, so I hid the book and said, "Let me unlock the door." I got off my bed, unlocked the door, then Daddy came in and apologized. "Jennifer, I was ready to bring Evelyn home, and then she started in again on you and her mother being witches. The doctors heard her and decided to run some more psychological tests on her. I was secretly glad she wasn't coming home, but I forced a pout and lied a little. Sorry, Daddy. I sure don't know why she is so sure grandmother and I are witches. Witches don't even exist anymore." Daddy agreed. "Jennifer, you're right, there are no witches anymore, and I sure don't understand what's gotten into your mother's head. But don't worry, we have the best doctors working on her, and they will figure it out." I forced a smile at Daddy and said, "Don't worry, Daddy, they will figure it out one of these days." Daddy added, "Daniela has dinner ready for us, so why don't you come on down to eat?" I replied, "Good, I'm hungry." Daddy teased, "After the lunch you had, how could you still be hungry?" I shrugged my shoulders and answered, "I guess I'm having a growth spurt." Flashback, Alexei at home. I had resigned myself that Mother was never coming home again. Not after what we saw and after the battle with the police. We returned home, turned on the television, and found there was a special report about the laboratory. They said the laboratory performed illegal behavior modification work and authorities had called in the military to close down the laboratory. We watched as the military approached the laboratory. The orderlies fired guns at them. The military returned fire and finally stormed the laboratory. Father turned off the television and said, "Alexei, we don't need to be reminded of the inside of the laboratory." I agreed. "Yes, Father, I saw enough when we went inside." Once again, I heard Father cry himself to sleep. Flashback, Ira and Mira, continuing. We arrived at the campsite with anticipation of participating in further battles with Kostia's troops, but instead were smacked of gob. The men had killed each other in dispute over the vodka and remaining cannabis. It appeared our plan of doctoring the vodka with the cannabis worked too well. It was no matter. We gathered their weapons and retreated to our domicile cave. Flashback, Todd, on the mission. Maria again shared the bed with me after we first tucked Gail into her new bedroom. I signed, "My back hurts a little tonight from moving all the furniture multiple times." Maria offered, "Roll over, and I will give you a massage." She gave me a hell of a massage. I almost fell asleep, but Maria wanted something else, and I sure wasn't going to say no to that. We finished, we're holding each other, and there was a noise downstairs. I grabbed the pistol off my nightstand, put on my shorts, headed downstairs, and found the lights on in the kitchen. I discovered Gail making a midnight snack of the food Roberto had brought earlier. I thought about scaring her, but knew better, so just I flashed the lights. It still startled her. She turned around and was munching on a chicken leg. I signed, "You need to be careful doing this at night. I could have shot you." Gail signed in complaint. "You and my sister were making so much noise I figured you'd never hear me." I signed, "I don't know what you're talking about. What about me and your sister?" Gail grinned and signed, "Come on. Maria makes so much noise when she has sex, I'm surprised the neighbors don't complain." Maria had come downstairs to see what was going on and said, "Gail, you take that back or I will spank you." Gail stuck out her tongue and signed. "What's wrong? You can't stand the truth? Everyone knew the furniture you bought today was really for you and Todd. I'm finished and going to try to get some sleep. That is if you two aren't too noisy again." Gail left the kitchen and Maria said, "I apologize for that, Todd." I signed, "Don't worry about it. We need to make sure we close the door the next time." Dear listeners, next part of the story will be released soon. Please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.